Hello everyone, Rabbi Abe here, welcome. I get a lot of questions about desire since we speak a lot about desire in a lot of the videos. And of course, the wisdom of the Kabbalah deals a lot with desire, the concept of desire. Why? Because Kabbalah means receiving. And there is no receiving without desire. Now, the question is, of course, everyone asks is, well, but I have a lot of desire and I don't get what I want. Well, okay, not so fast. So I just want to explain briefly. I don't want this to be a long video, but we can certainly talk a lot about this. The secret of desire. First off, number one, where does desire come from? Okay? First, desire is a result of what we call creation. And I'm not talking about the biblical, story, the Bible story. Because, of course, according to the Kabbalists, the Bible story is full of secrets. And we're not meant to take the Bible literally, even though, yes, of course, we believe the literal story of the Bible happened. But the reason why the Bible was written, it was not to tell us the story, but rather within those words, stories, and very, very particular concepts that are there to give us insight into life, the cosmos, how to work how to work this, how to work life, right? How does life work? How does God work? What is God? And so on. Okay, so first off, where does desire come from? Well, according to the creation story, the creator of all things, which we really don't understand, but the creator of all things has a quality about him to share and bestow. And that's all he does. Gives. You might say, well, what does he give? Does he give pizza? Does he give a new car? No. We are all universally, we're all after the same thing. In this world, it's an infinite amount of different ways. What do we want? We all want to be fulfilled. Simple. In this, we are all exactly the same. Of course, what makes the difference between us is how we would like to be fulfilled, right or wrong. So, one thing is important to one person and something else is important to another person, and we have an endless amount of different types of desires, but at the end of the day, we're after fulfillment. I don't know anybody who wants something that will not be fulfilling, at least in their mind. Nobody gets married to say, you know what, we're going to get married and get divorced next week. I mean, I don't think any, normal thinking person would think that way, right? Did you going to go out and make a purchase and because you're going to give it back? I don't mean Amazon Prime. I'm not talking about that. But, you make you purchase furniture for $30,000 planning to give it back. No, you love it. I mean, but sometimes the next day you're saying, well, maybe it was the wrong color and I do want to give it back. I mean, there's a mechanism, okay? There's a process in how we go about receiving the fulfillment in our life. It's a process. But clearly everything begins with a desire, because if you don't have a desire, you don't want anything. Clearly. So there's a couple of ideas here. First, again, where does desire come from? It's a product of creation. I won't go into the details now. But the souls of humanity, of which there was one universal soul, because in the final analysis, we are all part of one universal organism. But, of course, there's also a process of what the Kabbalists call the shattering of the vessels, which means that there are different components now, an endless amount of different sparks. It's called sparks of souls, which is the internal energy of everything. Not only human beings, my iPhone, the dog, the trees, the food, everything has an internal force of energy. Or not, it can't exist in this world without its force that enables it to exist. So, of course, those sparks are not equal, right? That's why people are different than trees and than an animal, and an animal is different than my iPhone, because there's a different level of spark. Okay, That spark, however, originates from creation, and it is that spark that causes it to have its desire. Now, we know desires are also unique. But again, now there's a lot to talk about over here, and again, I want it to be a little bit, short. I wasn't planning to create now a long talk, but this spark, the way it operates in this world, you see, in the spiritual world, there's only one type of fulfillment. One. It is the Creator's force, and the Creator's force is a force which simply fills endlessly in the spiritual world, meaning prior to physical creation. But after we have come down, however that happened, to this world, that universal one fulfillment is now fragmented into endless amounts, endless different types of fulfillment. The fulfillment that I get from eating a delicious slice of pizza or a steak. I love my car. You get the idea. Everything that we desire in life is there to potentially fulfill us. It is still a part of the universal force of the Creator, the godly force. It represents a fulfillment, but it's a piece. It's not the whole thing, right? In the spiritual world, in the creative process, so it was only one thing. In this world, in life after creation, again, however that took place, the one universal force became fragmented into an endless of different ways of being fulfilled. But the fulfillment is, in essence, the same. It's almost, a crude example would be, the same electricity runs your toaster, refrigerator, if you have an electric car, whatever, but it's all the same electricity. It all does different things, right? But the electricity is the same. In a way, the Creator's force is a little bit, and again, I'm not trying to, belittle the force of the Creator here, so don't get that idea, but still, there is a similarity in the sense of the electricity fills and makes it go, makes it alive, gives it a life force, and the physical structure, according to what I desire from it, will clothe it, that's the term, and it will do our bidding, meaning the pizza will fulfill us in a certain way. Yes, it's delicious. So the pizza's, accomplishing because I like it and I desire it. So I have a desire for this type of fulfillment, and as a result of our desire for a particular fulfillment, we become hopefully fulfilled by it according to our desire. So desire, of course, is absolutely necessary. Where does the desire come from? Interestingly, again, I say it is the origin of the creation. It came as a result of what we call the vessel of creation, which is what the Creator created. Simply a vessel to receive His beneficence. Now, the question that I get invariably is, okay, how come my desires are not fulfilled? That's the first question. And the second basic question is, how do I expand my desire? Now, if you're in a teaching that says, no, don't put your desire down. Okay, I'm not trying to create a conflict for you. But the study of Kabbalah is not for you, because Kabbalah is really all about receiving and how to expand our desire. Albeit that desire must be for the sake of benefiting others, not only ourselves. So when we speak about desire, please don't make the mistake of thinking that when we say desire, that we mean selfish. No, not at all. In fact, selfish desire will shut things down. And I'll tell you what I mean. Different types of desire have a different impact on our life. And this is where we're going. Okay, so in other words, how does the desire operate? We'll find when our desire is selfish desire, at least for ourselves personally, the gratification or the fulfillment, we won't even call it fulfillment, but what I get from it will be short-lived. If I'm obsessing over something and I say, this is it, I want this so much, so badly, and then when I get it, you know what? It's not going to last very long. We'll be done with it very quickly. The more I think that this is going to be the answer, I'll never want another thing, this is really, really what I want, the faster it's going to be over. I guarantee to you, this is a universal law. Check it. Check your own life and see if that's true or not. So that's not the type of desire we're talking about. Selfish desire will never last, and there's a reason for that. This is not the place to go into why, but you have to understand what we call the creative process. And in order to understand the creative process, you need to study a little bit. And this is what my coaching is about, all right? I coach people in this area how to adjust, readjust, or establish the right desire so it can net us fulfillment that doesn't go away. And the fulfillment should be connected with other forms or levels of fulfillment, because true good is connected to other good. So we have desires that we will call true desires, and which is what we are meant to have. And we also have false desires. How do we know? We often don't know, okay? And it's very difficult sometimes to tell the difference. I'm not going to get into that discussion at the moment, but clearly there are some desires that last, and probably most don't last, and that is an indication that it was a false desire. But what I will say is this. How do we expand our true desire? Well, that's important. How do we expand true desire? Well, there's a concept within the secrets of the Kabbalah called masach. Masach. We can spell it M-A-S-A-C-H. Masach. Masach is a Hebrew word, and it means a curtain. What is the meaning of a curtain? Well, in Kabbalistic terminology, for those who study a little bit more deeply Kabbalistic concepts, masach is a potential force that exists within us that I would say can be as close as something that we would understand, something like willpower, okay, or the power of our will. What is the power of will, actually? Will is desire. So the power of desire, but we all have desire. So what does that have to do with expanding? How do we expand? The question was, how do we expand our desire? And actually, it sounds simple. I don't say that it is simple, but we actually know about it and we do it, but we don't realize that this is the methodology of how to expand. So those of you who have the question, they say, well, but how do I make my desire bigger? Again, I'm going to give you that answer now, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily an easy thing to do. Okay? All right. So, as we said, all desires are the result of our own creative process and where our soul actually originated. So, our desires are not new. I know they look new to us. Oh, gee, I think I want those shoes now. Yeah, I understand. But it is the fulfillment of the shoes that you're after, because we are after the fulfillment of anything we desire. And we may think that will do it. Now, they may or they may not, but it is the fulfillment that I'm after. Remember, there's a difference. I may be after the shoes, I may not be, because I might get the shoes and realize, well, that's not really what I wanted. Or maybe, yes, it is. But it was the fulfillment that's destined to come to me, but we don't want to mess it up. Now, what do I mean? Well, look at it this way. I'll give you a very simple analogy. You're starving, okay? You're relatively far away from home, and you know that at home there's a good, wholesome meal waiting for you, and you really desire that. And it's good for you. Let's call that a true desire. So the true desire is, for me, to fulfill my hunger with that delicious, wholesome meal that's waiting for me at home. But as I'm driving, I begin to get impatient. I begin to obsess even over my hunger. I really want to eat something. It's so much on my mind. I have so much desire to eat right now. So what happens, or what might happen? I might stop, at the service stop. And I go in there and I see, chips, peanuts, whatever, maybe some pop if you drink, soda pop. And again, I'm just so hungry. I have desire to eat something. So I grab a bag of chips, and I grab whatever, some of those nuts, and I grab a soda. And, and by the time I get home, guess what? Where's my desire for the food that I was starving for, that I really, truly wanted? I might find that, I'm not exactly hungry anymore. Why? Because I fulfilled my desire with, and use this as a metaphor, junk food. I fulfilled my desire with junk fulfillment. Now, the question is, how are we doing this in life? But junk fulfillment is not the real fulfillment that we were after originally. And by the way, we might not even know what the real fulfillment was, okay? So we may just initially have a desire for the chips and the nuts and the whatever and the soda pop without even realizing that what I really wanted was that. I really might want, I think I want a one-night stand, but what I really want is a long-term, loving, caring relationship. But we settle. And the moment we settle, our desire shrinks. It's a rule, spiritual rule. Our desire overall for that area of life, not necessarily the whole thing, but it shrinks. Now, there's a lot of different ramifications of this, because this also works in terms of money, earning, because we have a certain desire. But when we become satisfied with less than what our true desire is, we will settle for less, and the outcome will be we'll also make less money. We won't meet the right people. So, this is a much deeper idea which affects us so much, and we're not aware of it. So, being aware of our true desire, well, that's very important. How do we get there? Okay, but the purpose of this conversation is, how do you expand desire? Well, again, the answer would probably be simple. Don't stop for the chips. You're hungry, and again, in most cases we don't know, but in this case, let's say we do know that there's a good, wholesome meal waiting for me at home. So what must I do? I must use, again, it's called a masach. I must use my curtain. Now that curtain, again, I said we could liken it in a simple way to the power of our will, the power of our desire. But it is a higher desire. What do I mean? It's a higher desire. We must use our higher desire to resist the lower level of fulfillment for the sake of a higher level of fulfillment. Which simply means I need to resist the chips and soda and wait till I get home, and then I can eat the good, wholesome dinner. Lovely. So easy. Yeah. When you know and have certainty what the real fulfillment is. But there's the catch. The catch is, unless you really understand the Kabbalistic principles, we don't really know and generally cannot see what is the true desire that will fulfill me, truly, and we tend to settle for what we think will fulfill me because I don't know what the real fulfillment is. I don't know. I can't see it. We don't understand what it is. So we settle for temporary relief of whatever, of our craving, of our desire, temporary relief. It's almost, again, like, the true desire is to go to the gym and work out and, get fit and strong and everything else. But I settled for comfort because it's more comfortable to, sit at home and not go to the gym. But again, I know the true fulfillment. The true fulfillment was to go to the gym. So again, this is something we know, we're aware of it. But if we weren't aware of it, of what the answer to my desire really is, then I wouldn't know that. So like this, even we know, doesn't make it that much easier. I settle, for the laziness that comes as a result of taking immediate comfort and not going to the gym. Because remember the rule, it will always take a higher level of desire to overcome a lower level of desire. Always. And that expands our desire. So two things expand our desire, actually. Being willing to resist the short-term fulfillment, and being willing to do that on behalf of a true fulfillment that I might not even know what it is. But as long as I know one thing, what's the one thing? Which is all I really need to know, but then it requires a little bit of faith, that if I resist the short-term gratification, it will, with certainty, it will bring me closer to the true desire that I'm not sure exactly what it might be, but it is there. You follow? I hope this is clear. Again, we deal in life generally with the things that we know about. Okay, I'm trying to lose weight, I need to resist the sugar, carb, whatever, to accomplish my goals. But what if you don't know what the goal is? But the goal is always to get to my true desire of fulfillment. So how do you know what that is? Well, the truth is you don't need to know what it is, but you do need to know one thing, that if this is a short-term fulfillment, if it's an instant gratification, if it's just to, placate my desire, now I'm settling. So even though I don't know what higher level of good is to come, even though I don't know, I have to understand that there is a system, and the system dictates that if a short-term desire of fulfillment came to me, there's a long-term desire, a true desire that is waiting for me, even if I don't know what it is. And that requires some, faith, you might call it, or belief, or the Kabbalist would say, you must understand the system, how the mechanism of the system works. That's the benefit of learning this and understanding this. Because the more you understand it, the less we're dealing with, just trust. Well, we have a hard time with that. The more you learn, the less you need to trust, because you begin to see the system is at work. And the system is always at work 24/7. Unfortunately, we're not always at work together in line with the system, but that's the purpose of learning. It's to help us adjust our consciousness so that the Creator's light can come to it, because it wants to come. It's available all the time. But it requires the right desire if you want the right fulfillment that will fulfill you properly and lead to more good and more better in our lives. Blessings, guys, and I'll see you soon in the next one. All the best.